All right. Aloha. Welcome to the 10th annual Hawaii BioEconomy Energy and Investment Forum presented by Asian Development Bank, eCombustible, and Pamesa Group. The theme of this year's forum is rethinking strategic public-private partnerships to rapidly achieve a net zero energy world. My name is Doug Adams. I'm the Director for Research and Development in the County of Hawaii, which is not this county, nor this island. But I do appreciate being invited back. Apparently I didn't wear out my welcome last time. I'd also like to, most of you should have just this really very nice program. And so I'm not going to necessarily run through all of the items in here. I will leave that to your good graces, but I would like to thank the other sponsors and hosts that are listed on the front. The hosts, by the way, are State of Hawaii House of Representative Jackson Sayama, State of Hawaii House of Representative Sam Satoru Kong, and Hawaii Annual Bioeconomy Forum founder and co-chair Janice Ko. In addition, there are plenty of bios in here for all of the speakers. It's really quite a remarkable and outstanding list of speakers that we have for today's and tomorrow's activities. And so I would encourage you to take a look at their bios and then of course chat everybody up during the breaks that we have. I'd also like to thank the Forum Committee, also listed on the front of the program. City of Honolulu Council Member and Speaker Emeritus Calvin Say, Michael Upshaw, Shonbok Lee, Sid Rue, T.S. Chung, Sydney or Sid Higa, Doug McCanna, Yu Young Kang, Kate Chang, and Scotty Wong, who is making sure that whatever I'm doing is actually going out live stream. Also, the forum today will cover in a general sense areas such as climate, energy security, and environmental investments from a US DoD perspective, innovation and investment in agriculture, education, and energy, with the idea that that will drive jobs, growth, and markets today and tomorrow. And then finally, global demand for hydrogen and investments that we hope will continue to rise. We'll work to make sure that they do continue to rise. Let me just do a little bit of logistical conversations. The restrooms, if you go out and then you head to the left, you'll see signs for the restrooms. Also, on the mics, if there are questions, I believe we will have mic use over on the side for any questions. I would encourage you to do that rather than speak from your seat, because we are recording this and it's also going out on a live stream. And then safety protocols, if there is any reason that we need to leave this facility, just head straight back out and then into the parking lot area that's outside the pavilion. And then we've already mentioned the live stream. So you'll see enough of me and hear enough from me. You don't need to hear any more from me right now. I would like to introduce and bring up to the stage Representative Jackson Sayama, who is one of the hosts of today's forum. Representative Sayama.
All right, good morning, everyone, and aloha. Well, this is, I just want to welcome everyone to the 10th Annual BioEconomy Forum. This is, I believe, my fourth, maybe third year helping host this wonderful event. So I do want to give a hand and thank you to the committee who made this event possible. I've been working with Janice, Council Member Say, not here right now, but he'll be joining us later. And folks like Scotty and Sydney who have helped make this possible. Let's give them a round of hand. So I know we have a packed program today, so I'll be keeping my remarks short, but it's very nice to see familiar faces. Dr. Yuyen, I think we've met last few years, and some new faces. Bennett Liu, nice to see you, as well as I believe we have a few more people joining us today. I think we had Leslie Willem, who I met just now. But it's really important that we all come together to really innovate and collaborate to address a lot of these global issues and local issues of sustainability and renewable energies. We're just finishing up the legislative session for the state of Hawaii, and throughout the session, we continue to see legislation, bills, policies, pilot programs that address and try to figure out ways that we can improve our Hawaii's own bioeconomy industry, our energy sustainability. So I'm very happy that we have bright leaders from all around the world and in Hawaii coming here today to discuss this very important topic. Finally, really, I just want to also give credit to my colleague, Representative Sam Kong, for helping me host this important forum. And of course, my mentor, and I mentioned earlier, Calvin Say, who will be joining us later. Without further ado, really, hope you guys have a wonderful forum. Hope you enjoy some of the coffee and sweets that are outside. But please, if you do have any questions, interests to talk about policy, feel free to come up to myself or Representative Kong later on. We'll be happy to talk story. And with that, thank you so much for coming.
I'm hoping that we get some lights up. There we go. Look at that. That's awesome. So for our first speaker, I'd like to introduce Dr. Leslie Wilhelm from the Operational Energy Office in the Department of the Navy in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. As I noted before, her bio was identified in the program. I did have an opportunity to talk briefly with Dr. Wilhelm before this, and the context that she's going to be able to provide for the conversations that we will have for the remainder of the day is really going to be important. It's vital work that she and her colleagues are doing. So I look forward to hearing from Dr. Wilhelm.
But this is fantastic. Normally, I'm up on my toes. Right, Jim Cayley, my colleague, actually has this great picture of me at our tabletop last week, and I'm literally sort of attempting to try to look over the podium. So appreciate this chance. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think this is so exciting, and I think we need to do more discussions across the board about how investor forums can help us meet some of our strategic imperatives. I've really come to believe that of the various options and opportunities that we have to influence a better model for security, particularly for our allies and partners, that working with our private sector community is vitally important. I think when we within the military talk about military tactics alone, that we really fall short, and you as the taxpayer sort of suffer for that, because as General Mattis often said, the more money that you don't spend on the State Department, the more money you're going to need to give to me to buy missiles, because the prospect that for small amounts of money in economic development and diplomacy that we put in, then can cause large ripple effects for the necessity to be able to have bigger military action. So the tabletop that we participated in last week largely was in that vein. We brought together the interagency to talk about how do we do things differently, because our adversaries certainly are very creative about how they're reaching into this gray zone space, and and using creative means to be able to have influence in a world where, we may never enter into the conflict that our Defense Department imagines that we're preparing for. And so I think being able to think better across the spectrum is so important. So the anecdote that we used to run our tabletop was through the lens of the energy needs of our Philippine partners. And while I think this is an absolute key and necessary avenue that we need to explore, it also, as I said, is an anecdote for the necessity to be able to invest in our allies and partners toward better security for them and for us. Oh, beautiful. Excellent. So we ran an educational and interagency tabletop exercise, and I say war games and tabletop exercises tend to be of one or two ilks. They're either analytical, and we talk a lot more about analytical exercises because of the prospect of things like AI giving us access to big data, which is very useful. But in the human sense, often educational games really are turning point moments for the human aspect of us that needs to better understand what it is that we are trying to achieve. Why does the big data matter? Why does what it's telling us indicate a better strategic approach to where we're trying to go? So we, like I said, we wanted to talk about improving energy security and resiliency for the Philippines, and what are those things that provide for engagement with them and also with private industry partners, the areas that we as DoD often, while we have large amounts of interest in equity, we often don't have access to those things that our private industry partners are able to do and have the sort of means where, despite our massive budget, our hands are sort of tied in the ways that we can spend money. And so being able to use some of our strategic imperative, but your ability to be able to invest in these areas is so vitally important. So we got together partners across the interagency. I terrified my friends at the State Department when I first came to them with this concept. They sort of said, get out of my soup, because this is their world. But for reasons that I'll get into in a moment, I think it's better that we form these partnerships and understand how we affect and influence one another. Fortuitously, my friends at the Department of Energy were much more excited about leaning into this concept, and USAID was over the moon with sending folks. So many thanks to them. The Department of Commerce, I had an entire lesson in how the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank work, which was phenomenal. And many thanks to the Asian Development Bank folks for sponsoring this today. Haynes Roberts, my new best friend in Manila, has been incredible at educating me in how this entire process works. And so, how those aspects of our Department of Commerce were things that I was entirely unfamiliar with, and excited to engage myself, as well as some of my other DoD colleagues who were also undereducated in this space. One of the unique aspects of the game was that we wanted to bring in Philippine partners as representatives, typically within the DoD wargaming space, because we have a propensity to put a premium on classified intel. We tend not to involve our key allies and partners, which is really very myopic on our part. I think we fail to get their perspectives, and we rely on synthesizing their opinions through our intel community. And I can't tell you enough that this often falls short. They don't have the cultural context, they don't have the nuance, and particularly they tend to look at everything through a militaristic lens that fails to capture a lot of the things that we were trying to get at during the course of this game. However, as I said, I terrified our State Department partners, who were concerned that the outcomes of this exercise would be construed as official State Department policy, which, without them having scrubbed and considered it for way too long to be meaningful, they drew a line in the sand and said, under no circumstances were we to invite members of the Philippine government. Fortuitously, my friends at SOCOM stepped in and said, yeah, but if you attempt to represent Philippine viewpoints synthetically, you might as well not do this at all. And so they gave us the impetus to go and seek out those in the Philippines who are, while not a part of the Philippine government, are adjacent and in many ways more in the know about many of the sort of more meta aspects. So we sought out those who were at think tanks, retirees, those who had a lot of familiarity, and we were able to get people who'd been very high ranking, but who had subsequently sort of retired or had gone on to more private sector practices, and it was actually very fortuitous, and I think the State Department really gave me more of a gift than they knew, because those who are more adjacent are willing to be a lot more candid about their thoughts about what the energy posture looks like in the Philippines, and so it was a really good opportunity to get a really in-depth perspective on things. So that worked out very well. So like I said, it was last week. We normally, DoD conducts tabletop exercises and war games with our federally funded research and development centers. These are absolutely wonderful partners of ours. They provide us with excellent insight, but tend to look at things through a very militaristic lens. So I had sought out friends of mine at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. CSIS is a fairly unique think tank. They will tell you they are, a lot of think tanks will claim to be nonpartisan. More realistically, I think CSIS claims to be bipartisan and does and attempts to reflect on views across the political spectrum, as well as a lot of geopolitical issues in a very thoughtful way. I highly recommend looking into some of their products, because they're really phenomenally well done, and most of them are publicly available. So they were excellent partners in this. They tend to also be very close with the State Department, so they helped me in negotiating a lot of the ins and outs of my interagency partners. So the strategic impetus, why does DoD care? And this document, the U.S. Joint Concept for Competing, it's a publicly available document, and I absolutely recommend reading it. Unlike most DoD documents, which are dry and horrific and great if you have a hard time getting to sleep, the Joint Concept for Competing is fairly unique in that it's actually fairly exciting and inspirational, because it speaks to how we work across the interagency. How do we put forward our partners in the private sector toward the needs of our allies and partners? And so I do recommend reading it. For those of you who don't think DoD documents pertain to you, I think you'll actually find yourselves in this one in particular. It's accessible and exciting, and I was thoroughly thrilled that someone was forward leaning into it. Unfortunately, I tell my boss, Jim Cayley, often, if I'm not trying to get fired every day, I'm really not trying hard enough. And so what I've been told by my SOCOM buddies is that anyone who has ever attempted to actually tactically implement any of the things in this document has been fired. I think the DoD is not quite ready for this, but being on the forward-leaning side of things, I think I am of the belief that tabletop exercises are that the imperative for us to be able to explore these things. So why the Navy in particular? The Navy tends to be sort of stodgy, and we let our Marine Corps friends sort of run lead on things. But I do have to admit, Admiral Del Toro himself has a pretty amazing vision for why and how this is important. And if you listen, there's a great video of him talking at the Harvard Kennedy School about what he calls maritime statecraft, which is really the Navy's approach to the Joint Concept for Competing. And it really leans into those ideas about how we get involved in strategic competition, and how we are not just a naval force providing military cover for our friends, but we're actually acknowledging their needs, and again, how do we work better with our interagency partners, and I think really acknowledges some of the strategic approaches that our adversaries have taken, particularly in the South China Sea, where they have certainly leaned into the idea of what my friend Hunter Stiers, who is the maritime strategist to the Secretary of the Navy, calls a maritime insurgency. And so that being said, he has theories for a maritime counterinsurgency, which says if the idea of our adversaries is to pressure the civilian populations of our Southeast Asian allies and partners aggressively, then how do we lean into stopping that? And my late and very dear friend Art Corbett had given sort of the Marine Corps forward-leaning approach to this in his thoughts about expeditionary advanced base operations. And Art was the first one within the military construct to sort of get into the idea of making the very uncomfortable and obvious statement that in so much as we had enjoyed a lot of asymmetry in our global war on terrorism, that we needed to begin to get serious about looking at our PRC adversary. So Art's theory of expeditionary advanced base operations, I think was understood by the Marine Corps as how do we put people and stuff on islands forward so as to, we're not quite sure, to keep the adversary on their toes, I suppose. They understood how do we do the logistics part of this, but what they didn't understand was what operations we meaningfully undertake to be able to push back against adversary misbehavior. And so Art passed away in February of 2021. I still haven't forgiven him for that. We were supposed to be at the Pentagon the next morning, and I was screaming bloody murder that he, as a Marine Corps colonel, had not been given orders to leave us. But so those of us who've been trying to sort of continue the work of what operations we undertake to meaningfully push back. I don't know that the direction that I've taken this is necessarily his original intent, but I do believe in talking to many people that it is one that is providing a meaningful pathway forward. So I believe that our levers of power throughout the economic space are ones that we can make huge headways for, far less investment than carrier strike groups or ballistic missile systems that we as DoD need to sort of open the aperture to what we want to do strategically, and not lean so hard into being fascinated by exquisite technology and capability. If we think first about what it is that we're trying to achieve, I think we can get a lot further. So the exercise that we engaged upon, I think we laid it out as what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What is our purpose in conducting the exercise? What objectives do we hope to meet? What is our engagement strategy? Who do we want in the room to be able to affect our change? How do we design a game to elicit the requisite response out of the experts in the room, which is, for those of you who have ever endeavored upon this, is no small challenge. And many thanks to my colleagues at CSIS who created a phenomenal product to elicit excellent response from all of the expert players that we had. The scenarios that we thought were of the most value across the spectrum, so the interagency could appreciate the roles that each one takes on, and the transition pathways, which I think are of most interest to the people in the room today. That what I wanted to know was that if we came up with key areas that we thought were high value investments that would help both with security and deterrence for our Philippine ally, and then, like I said, in the broader space to our other allies in the Pacific, what are those investment frameworks that are pre-existing, and where can we get at some of these things to make this actionable? So getting to an all-of-nation approach is challenging. I think many of my colleagues within DoD sort of timidly say, "Well, next time we'll invite the interagency," and they say this with sort of trepidation and excitement, and I'm like, "It's the time is now. That we need to get at this, and it's not next time. It's we've already missed the boat, so we need to catch up." So energy is something that really drives the world. It is and those of you who are in the energy infrastructure space know this better than anyone, that a resilient energy posture is something that really is the thing that tips the balance. And what we're watching with our allies in Ukraine is how desperately this tide can turn over energy issues. And so I think what people are sort of failing to appreciate is that Ukraine certainly doesn't happen in a vacuum, and that the global price of liquefied natural gas has driven global coal usage to probably an all-time high, and as well as sort of creating energy fragility everywhere. And so these things don't ever happen in a vacuum. Global energy commodities are things that affect the tides of all of us. And so sort of what better anecdote to look at how we create change than through better energy resiliency, which is a winning proposal for everyone. So how do we create that better deterrent posture? And also it provides great opportunity to engage with allies and partners in meaningful ways, where I think security cooperation has always been the thing that DoD leans into. And while our allies and partners have said, it's nice to conduct military exercises, it doesn't have the effect on the population that infrastructure investment does, that our PRC adversary has been so effective at coming in and providing opportunities for infrastructure development that are very tempting, so that even leaders who are not corrupt or easily bought are very tempted, I think, to take an option that isn't being offered by others. And so I think leaning into the option that we can provide to places, and I'll get into some of the things that the State Department has learned in doing this that I think are rather telling, is really important. So like I said, to get from sort of the strategic to the tactical, the Philippines' energy posture is very fragile. Coal still provides for the lion's share of their energy, and my discussion earlier with Doug was that no matter what side of the sort of climate change prospects you fall on, porting fuel anywhere is a losing proposition. Under any circumstances, it's wasteful, and it's something that doesn't provide for adequate resiliency. So regardless of whether your goal is security or carbon emissions, I think there's a winning proposition to be had in that we need to break away from moving fuel all over the world, which is a losing prospect for everyone involved, and one we can get bipartisan support for. So this journey had started because the gas field that provides for about 30% of the electricity on Luzon at Melampaya will run dead dry. It's already started depleting, and in 2027, Manila believes that they will be out of extractable natural gas at their sort of organic site. I believe that they are largely looking in the short term to import liquefied natural gas. I think many of our Japanese partners have looked at underwriting some of the necessity for liquefied natural gas contracts. So that was one of the things that we explored and looked at, because it may be a decent short-term solution. It was one that at one point in time, when the LNG market was much more favorable, looked like it was a much better option. But given what is going on in Ukraine, maybe a shorter term solution than Manila would have liked. So we certainly had the opportunity to talk about the generation fragility. I think what I failed to appreciate until I got with my State Department colleagues is that wasn't even the crux of the issue, which was largely that there are huge transmission issues, that while European nations have the luxury of abutting one another so that when they want to buy energy across borders, they simply run lines. Whereas for island archipelagos, that's not a feasible option. And so they're looking again always at either fuel porting or organic options that are somewhat limited. So we started to look at the transmission issues also, because many of the small islands are still running on diesel generators. Again, not a particularly good prospect. In particular, the Batanes, the small islands between Luzon and Taiwan, are particularly fragile, and they're looking to absorb all of the Philippine workers were something to go sideways in Taiwan. And so looking at their energy postures, I think is one of those key issues to why in DoD we care, because I think any fragility there becomes say a liability in attempting during a conflict or crisis to be able to deal with that. So it was definitively a learning process in getting, like I said, the broader issue and then some of these key anecdotes. So we wanted to get policymakers involved. So we brought in those who were decision makers. I think the end of June, beginning of July, we'll actually run the game with congressional staffers, because these cross interagency lines, and we can create internal policy. All is well and good so long as we're talking to one another. But there was definitely a discussion of the need for broader policy issues about what we can undertake. So what were the resource investments and trade-offs if we're investing versus not? What are the consequences in the risk calculus space? What are those areas that we can further analyze and invest in? And then what is going to be the response of the adversary, who is very creative and knowledgeable about what it is that we're doing, and how do we avoid creating more space for them as opposed to less. So, like I said, we brought in the interagency as well as our incredibly knowledgeable Philippine allies. I am in the process of working on integrated teams subsequently to look at what are those key investment areas that may prove to be high value in the short and long term. And then where are the resources? So this was a prospect of ours that, like I said, the third day we didn't gameplay. We talked to all of those various entities that have investment frameworks. So like I said, the game design was to elicit all of the expertise from the players. A lot of times DoD gets very complex game mechanics that nullifies any of the requisite expertise in the room, which was what we were really trying to capture. And so they had a very free-form design that allowed, in particular, our Philippine participants, who were delightfully both candid and somewhat nefarious in their their thinking, and very much willing to hold us to task with what they were hoping to do to expand their relationship with us. And so they also argued amongst themselves extensively, saying that this is the great thing about being a democracy. And so we seemed to quickly sort of devolve into agreeing upon ready-made solutions, where the Philippine participants, I think, had very robust discussions about what was needed. So that was phenomenal. So we looked honestly at the sort of what were the various things that we were trying to achieve versus with the prospects of investment, which I think is a more innocuous discussion versus those of the territorial integrity and geopolitical aspects of it, because the Philippines is largely in this situation because the PRC has not allowed them to benefit from other extraction opportunities in their exclusive economic zone, because it falls within the claims that the PRC makes of the 9-line, that it's become the price is too high, and so the Philippine energy companies have not been allowed to explore, making the situation sort of vulnerable and fragile. So we talked to them about, are there benefits aside from just the energy needs to going after some of these things? I am of the opinion that while much is made about Second Thomas Shoal and the Sierra Madre and trying to maintain territorial integrity of that piece of property, that Reed Bank is actually the more valuable spot to consider, because the hydrocarbons sort of make or break the argument about who owns and controls what. And so the Philippines is really holding the line for all of us, because they make the point about whether the territorial integrity of one's exclusive economic zone matters. And I think the world supporting that is vital. So we wanted to know, what exists already, like I said, across generation as well as transmission, because both seem to be issues of concern. The Philippines has leaned into this, and that their new energy investment strategy actually acknowledges the connection between those two things, where before they were looking at them as separate issues. So they're certainly looking at the prospects of their own future, and are not naive to these things. So we certainly didn't want to approach it thinking we were going to be solving their problems for them. And so, what are the things that we can do that are low-hanging fruit, and then what are those things that are going to require sort of more long-term approaches? We did sort of go into the thing, assuming that if we were to make investments in the energy sector, that we could stabilize the grid to reduce the experience of rolling brownouts and blackouts. That I think insultingly, the Filipinos pay more per kilowatt hour than anywhere else in Asia, and still experience a tremendous amount of hours and days without power. And so I think we said, can we improve their situation there, which I think improving the civilian prospects are something that has to do with a lot of security issues. And that if we were to make it known that we were helping them to do this, that it would increase our prospects of better diplomacy. I know as we make plans to have personnel and material forward, that the maintaining that relationship is so vital, because the Mutual Defense Treaty sort of exclusively gives us access, but that access is under a lot of scrutiny. There are a lot of Filipinos that are very concerned about that, and showing that we are leaning into giving back, I think, is really important, because if the civilian population isn't supportive of our being there, no matter what are the best of our intentions might be, that we need to make good on it. And that was one of the things that our Philippine partners during the game had really made clear, that they wanted us as the US to be to show that we meant it. So we did abstract some things. Like I said, it was an educational, not an analytical game. And so, we abstracted some scenarios to sort of give potential scenarios and anecdotes. But I think the overall, we came up with the things that really fairly well matched reality, that were at least worthwhile to explore. So, like I said, I think this slide is probably of the most interest to the people in the room. I called the third day of the game the Show Me the Money Day, because I'd like to take credit for good planning, but frankly, I will take serendipity when I get it, because we had arranged the days of the game during the Balakatan exercise, which was in some ways unfortunate. But what fell into my lap was that during the course of the week that we played the game, we had negotiated the trilateral between the Japanese and the Philippines, which was an exciting prospect. And the State Department had rolled out its Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, which the PGI is really sort of a hard play counter to the Belt and Road Initiative. How are we beginning to look more strategically at our investment prospects? And they started in Africa, which I had alluded to the fact that the State Department has some interesting and key anecdotes about it. And I think, what has become globally infamous is the sort of railway infrastructure that the BRI had really leaned into preliminarily to gain access to critical minerals and things in Africa. And so some of those railway contracts are in fact still being competed, and U.S. bids toward them were very favorably received. In fact, the PRC pulled many of their offerings because I think there was so much favorability, and it's certainly an anecdote and an indication that if we're offering an alternative, that it's certainly something that is very much of interest to our allies and partners, that they've been asking for this, and we're late to the game, but it's still that coming in with that was important. And so last week they rolled out the Luzon corridor portion of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, which I'd like to say, well, we timed and aligned our event exactly to correlate with that, which was not at all the case. But fortuitously, we did get the State Department to come and talk to us about what it is they're looking at rolling out. Much of it has to do with energy infrastructure. I think they are looking at how do they get private equity involved, but also we wanted to look at how does this have linkages to all of the other sort of government entities that can lean into this. So we talked to the Department of Energy and USAID, who are building out key programs to stabilize a lot of the grid structure in the Philippines, which I think was exciting. They are working with state on this whole idea of how do we capitalize on these PGI investments, and so the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank talk to us a lot about how they have all kinds of opportunities. One of the things that they are really struggling with, they tell us, is access to small and medium-sized U.S. companies who they very much would be interested in providing funding to do some of these overseas investments. And a lot of small and medium-sized companies are unaware that those opportunities are available, because I think they don't consider going to some of these development finance companies, imagining that only large-sized companies can gain access. But a lot of the investment opportunities are much better suited to small and medium-sized businesses. So definitely, if you're interested in some of those contacts, that was one of the things that we thought was a low-hanging fruit that we get approached within DoD a lot from small and medium-sized U.S. companies interested in doing business with DoD interests. But I think talking to them about how some of that defense interest is in allies and partners would be really beneficial. So that was one of the things that I think we concluded. Similarly, Millennium Challenge and Development Finance corporations had their pieces. The Philippines, forgive me, has been challenged with quite a bit of corruption, and so Millennium Challenge Corporation has for many years sort of extracted themselves. But with the advent of the Marcos administration leaning into fixing some of those problems, Millennium Challenge is on the cusp of moving back in, and they're looking at infrastructure projects that they can fund. So we also had the fortuitous opportunity to talk to the Rockefeller Foundation about just energy transition partnerships. The JETPs were they took on sort of a bad flavor in the mouth of investors, because the efforts that they undertook in South Africa sort of dissipated into significant corruption. The efforts being undertaken in Indonesia, I think the problem was that they brought in a lot of the investor money and then tried to retroactively figure out what projects they were undertaking to spend it on, leaving investors sort of hanging on it. And so that money is just sort of hanging in the balance. So I think what Rockefeller felt that they wanted to be able to do in the Philippines, because it's such a key place for investment, is to underwrite a framework initially that would give them targeted projects in areas that would actually make a difference. So I believe that they stand a good chance by underwriting the whole prospect. And I'm going to be in Manila at the end of the month and talk to them more about where they're going with that. So happy to connect you if you're interested in some of those opportunities with the JETP, because I think they're looking at how that can be better expanded upon, and what technologies would be beneficial in that arena. We did talk to Shell, Exxon, and Chevron, who, sort of the big global players in the energy space, which was particularly interested in, given the Philippines leaning into the short-term prospects of LNG to solve a lot of their power generation needs, and they were surprisingly willing to really lean in, despite the fact that the business case for them is not entirely favorable, and they are a global commodity company. They do work with pretty much everyone, including adversaries, but I think they see global prospects for where they have excellent opportunity to help us to lean into some of these things. So they've been excellent partners in this. A lot of the small modular reactor companies are very interested in leaning into places in the world that have small islands, as I'm sure you in Hawaii are well aware about the fact that technology, I think, has excellent opportunity. They see great prospects for how it both provides for resilient off-grid power, particularly for something like a military base, but also provides the potential for baseload power for things like solar and wind, if battery technologies are less favorable. And so we were particularly interested in how they're leaning into that, because I know the military bases in the Philippines are controversial, and grid stress is one of the things that they've labeled as one of the key points of consternation about not wanting a larger U.S. military presence, because we would, even if it was just a perception, that we would cause even more stress on an already fragile grid. So that was a particularly interesting discussion. Like wonderful discussions with Janice about the idea of coal conversion to hydrogen fire, because I think that has excellent prospects for what we could lean into, and so want to further those conversations. And then finally, the prospect of microgrids is something that, again, in small island countries, I think has a lot of opportunity to be very helpful, particularly places that, again, run diesel generators for most of their power, which I think in situations of severe weather, and or conflict becomes a particularly difficult prospect. So I think that's the end of my deck. So I have been asked by my colleagues sort of across the interagency about projects that you would foresee for energy infrastructure that could be completed over various timelines, but they are asking for short turns to show some success with this. So if you have technologies, ideas, and an interest, I would ask, I'd love to collect your business cards and talk to you about our opportunities, because I think we're pretty excited to make some of this actionable. So hopefully that provides a somewhat strategic outlay to today's talk, and apologies for going on a bit, but thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Wilhelm. That's to synthesize a full 3 days plus all of the context that was necessary for that particular tabletop exercise, TTX, really quite remarkable, and plenty of information there to pull from in conversations during the breaks today. Next speaker is Dr. Mike von Fonstock, and Mike is the head of the Science and Technology Department here at U.S. Indo-PACOM, which is the regional command for the US DoD here, headquartered in Hawaii. And he did tell me what he was going to talk about, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. So with that, Mike von Fonstock.
Good morning. Just a clarification, I'm not the S&T advisor. I'm on the S&T advisor team as a research leader and program manager. And today, focusing on bioeconomy and investment and energy. So which do I pick? How do I go? And although I have a lot of interest in like hydrogen and renewables and expeditionary energy, I wanted to focus today on opportunities in the DoD's biomanufacturing efforts related to bioeconomy. So, that was the wrong way. Okay. Great. All right. So, what is biomanufacturing? So, basically, the DoD, we're defining it as the use of biological mechanisms to do manufacturing. So historically, it was all agricultural, medical based, but how can we work with biotechnology to branch out into different areas of materials, bioprocesses to make value-added products, and also products that can help us with logistics and supply chain management, improved performance in our equipment, and has certainly both DoD and commercial applications. So what the biomanufacturing initiatives in the DoD are trying to do is to build a self-sustaining domestic ecosystem that gets at closing those gaps in supply chain management and materials development, and that can help us build a more resilient military and also a supply from the commercial side into the military. So specifically, I want to talk about exact examples that are happening right now for your interest that might be of interest from an investment or a participation standpoint. So the DoD's rolled out in 2023, rolled out a biomanufacturing strategy. And out of that strategy, they've got several initiatives. One is the member, one is called TBRIS, one is called BioMade, and I'll explain those here next. So the biomanufacturing strategy is rooted in Executive Order 14081, also the 2022 National Defense Strategy, and the strategy was published on March 21st, 2023, and certainly available online to pull it out. And several other supporting executive orders and policies that support the biomanufacturing strategy upon which it's based. So there are three guiding principles to the biomanufacturing strategy, and that's to look and work with early transition for innovation in the biomanufacturing, biotechnology arena, and to relate those to requirements from the operational commands, such as ours at Indo-PACOM. Secondly, is to look at scale up. So getting from the early idea, the early research stage into industrial scale and do it at speed. And how do we do that best? And that's through collaboration with industry. And also not just US, but there is emphasis on working with allies and partners. So we say domestic based, but it's domestic based, but also a partnership with allies and partners. And again, stressing the dual use capabilities, both defense and commercial. So we want something that has a sustainable return on investment and can grow and build a stronger economy. And finally, the third principle is mapping out the ecosystem as it is now. So we have a baseline, so we can have metrics to see how are we going from our baseline today towards a 2028, 2030 benchmark, a future benchmark, and how are those metrics showing improvement? Are we meeting those goals? So from an investment standpoint, once you have a strategy, how do you affect that strategy? You have to put funds against that strategy to start implementing it. So there is some funding out there right now, and there's $300 million in what's called the Tri-Service Biotechnology for Resilient Supply Chain Program. That's the TBRISC one. And that's looking at things like developing bio-based fuels, for example, is a big initiative under that. And it's going at how do you get from that R&D through prototyping. So it's in that prototyping, advanced development into, basic research through advanced development into prototyping. And that's in collaboration with the different DoD service labs. So each service lab, like the Air Force Research Lab, Office of Naval Research, the Army's Development Command, and they can collaborate with industry through different agreements, other transaction authorities, other contract mechanisms, create cooperative research agreements, and there are opportunities that are being solicited on put out online. And then secondly, the member program, which is the manufacturing enabled by modular bioindustrial and renewable assets effort, and that's funded at $1.2 billion across 2023 to 2028. So there's some relatively good amount of money available, and it's not just for DoD to use it, it's to work with industry. So there are opportunities, solicitations offered up through those two programs, and as well as another one I'll mention next. And again, it's to get to that infrastructure, to build up the manufacturing, the biotechnology infrastructure, biomanufacturing infrastructure domestically and in collaboration with allies and partners at industrial scale. Just wanted to show that there are 3 lines of effort under the member program, and that's to build up facilities, to leverage existing facilities, rebuild old facilities, and also build new ones, and to generate opportunities to collaborate and to accelerate that scale up, that innovation, get beyond just the agricultural and the traditional medical opportunities and biomanufacturing into more chemical engineering, bioprocesses, advanced materials, and also developing a workforce. How do we build the brain trust to accomplish this and sustain the biomanufacturing initiative? So how do we build out innovation? How do we fund pilot and opportunities that are risk-based? And the DoDs are very good at taking that initial risk and then letting industry take the results of that and commercializing it. So a lot of times the initial ROI is tenuous because of the risk to the investment community. But if DoD puts that initial seed investment in place, then that takes that risk away, and we can partner with industry to then transition the basic research, the pilot research into a scalable manufacturing business that's with economic benefit. And then how do we work at mitigating the logistics risks and bottlenecks in a forward environment? We're looking from a DoD perspective at in Indo-Pacific, at tyranny of distance, whole island nation collaboration. How do we work with allies and partners to build capability forward, to reduce a risk in the supply chain through biomanufacturing? And secondly, how do we build expeditionary capability to do just-in-time production of materials and fuels, et cetera, for our forces forward? And getting from research to a viable commercial entity requires a transition from prototype to a full-blown production capability, and that takes a lot of effort, and oftentimes it's complicated in as far as the whole acquisition process within the military. So how can we work with a more agile acquisition process through new ways of doing advanced development and that transition process in collaboration with industry? So we are working with new approaches, such as working with Defense Innovation Unit. They're at diu.org, and they often offer cooperation opportunities with industry through their work, and then also through several collaboration fora that I'm going to highlight a couple of them here to effect a better way to collaborate between the military and the commercial entities. All right, so one of these collaborative entities is called the BioMade Consortium, and it's a public-private partnership established in 2021, and it's based in Minnesota, and it is a way to promote bio-based technology collaboration through a consortium of members who then can bid on topics that are put into the BioMade through the BioMade program office, and those are designed to help address military defense problem sets, and then we can get at a wide pool of small, medium, large businesses to support solutions. And it's growing, and we're looking forward to working with BioMade on a couple of projects here at Indo-PACOM in the area of like biocement, for example, as one topic. And we're also looking at a wastewater technology that we're going to propose through Air Force Research Lab using a NASA technology. But the whole idea is to get almost a crowdsourced solution approach through the consortium, and de-risk the approach to, again, the DoD seed money, and then providing matching funds and through the BioMade team downstream as a transition. Another key function is, again, to build out that workforce. How do we develop the bioindustry workforce? So the website is on the bottom, and if people are interested in learning more about BioMade or becoming a member, it explains that in more detail. So what about Hawaii? We're in Hawaii. How can we help collaborate together in Hawaii to build business, to support our defense posture and resiliency on the island? So one way is, again, participating in consortia like BioMade. There's also academic challenges that the member program is offering up. I think there's one open right now. So, for example, Chaminade or HPU or UH could go and bid on one of these academic challenges, take it on. And there's 5 areas that the member program is pursuing in the areas of food, firepower, like energetic materials, so non-fuel energetics, fabrication of new materials. And when I say fitness, it's about how to improve the supply chain, how to improve the workforce, how to make us more resilient through bio-based engineering, bio-based research. And finally, again, the fuels. How do we get bio-based fuels at scale? How do we scale it up to get at, thousands of gallons a day production versus, oh, I can make 3 gallons in my backyard. So that whole fuel effort is headed by the TBRISC portion of the bio manufacturing DoD efforts. And then I highlighted a website there on usbiomanufacturing.com So give you more insights there and how to look at some of the RFPs through member, and also look at another consortium approach. And going back to the DoD, we're well versed in working with our medical research and the NIH and universities, and Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, or DARPA, to look at bio-based medical countermeasures. And a good example is the recent COVID outbreak. The technology for the mRNA vaccine actually stemmed from a DARPA initiative. So a good application of bio-based DoD thinking that was transitioned to big pharma and rolled out to a global impact, positive effect. Again, expeditionary biomanufactured products. How do we get at something that is small, light, yet effective at building out enough capacity to be operationally relevant forward in theater? Can it be something we work with our allies to have capacity in theater through ally collaboration? Or is it something we have to bring with us through airlift or sea lift, and therefore has to be more effective and on a small, portable fashion? Food security, I don't think I need to belabor that. I think everybody understands the need for food security and different ways of doing that, either through agricultural means or, again, bio-based food production through recycling, reuse of materials. And green energy through bio-based processes is a big theme. I don't need to dwell on that. And I'm looking for how do we develop like our biomanufacturing capabilities in Pacific Island nations to address resiliency, quality of life, and countering climate change. Thank you for your attention. I wanted to kind of give you a quick overview, and hopefully this was of some interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Von Fonstock. I have to say, as Economic Development Director in the County of Hawaii, looking at some of the slides that you had and the opportunities that exist here in Hawaii, really important stuff, and we'll be in touch. Our next speaker is T.S. Chung, known to folks who have been here before. He has just a remarkable background and biography. And so I would invite Mr. Chung up to the podium. He is here as a part of the Philippine National Oil Corporation and E-Combustible. Please. All right.
Green hydrogen energy, an alternative source of power. Here is the report. Climate change advocates, renewable energy prime movers, and green energy technology innovators in the Philippine energy industry support the building of green hydrogen hubs in the country. They signed a memorandum of understanding following the presentation made by South Korean energy experts SME Solution in partnership with Shindong Construction Company Limited and DMC Asia Solutions Corporation about green hydrogen hubs as an environmentally friendly and alternative source of electricity. The groups concurred to launch a campaign and dedicated action plan to persuade the Philippine government to implement the gradual reduction of fossil fuel dependence in the country. This is in accordance with the Paris Climate Change Convention, adopted by 195 countries to limit the global temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Green hydrogen can help reduce carbon emissions in the environment, where water goes through the electrolysis process as a renewable source to separate oxygen and hydrogen that will be used to produce electricity. It also uses a small portion of land compared to other renewable energy sources.
Actual location of power plants will depend on support infrastructure, such as substations and connection to transmission lines and the power consumers. So we need to study the actual locations by location. But generally speaking, I think Philippines being a energy shortage country, we believe there's a lot of potential for this green hydrogen all around the country. We can provide a lot of power with very limited land, so we can provide power to urban areas, also to special economic zones, to large users like mining companies, mines. With so many islands and large population, for tourism industry to stay vibrant into the future, you need to have a clean environment. And for clean environment, you need to reduce carbon dioxide emission, because we all are experiencing the effects of climate change with severe climate ups and downs and with storms that are very, very powerful, but that destroy the natural environment and also the industries and the urban areas that pollute the environment. So in order to reduce pollution and keep the nature and the environment clean.
Mayor Lamberto Bambao plans to pilot the first ever green energy hub in the Philippines as a relief from the rotational brownout they are experiencing in his town, Ternate, Cavite.
Ito po ay napakaganda para sa bayan namin ng Port Municipality. Malaking tulong po sa aming kababayan.
Former Philippine Economic Zone Authority or PEZA Director General Charito Plaza believes that this will help lower power generation costs.
Napakaganda ng technology na dinadala ng ating mga Korean investors dito sa Pilipinas. Ito po isa sa mga importanteng technology na kailangan natin upang ma-attract natin ng investors, because the Philippines is blessed with natural resources. Yung hydrogen source of energy is really very much welcome kasi ang dami nating natural resources. So lahat ng klase ng renewable energy ang pwede natin gawin dito sa Pilipinas. All we need is to attract investors who will bring this technology. Meron na tayong windmill, meron na tayong solar power, meron na tayong mga biofuel. So itong hydrogen is another big source of renewable energy that we gladly will welcome to the Philippines.
In President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s
Well, aloha. It's good to be here again. I was here last year attending the 9th BioEconomy Forum, back here for the 10th. And I want to thank Janice for inviting me again and for introducing me to a number of companies that are represented here, including eCombustible. And the speaker after me, Mike Upshaw, will talk more about eCombustible. Since I participated in the BioEconomy Forum last year, I made another trip to Philippines. I made 2 trips to the Philippines last year. And I thank Dr. Leslie Wilhelm, who gave us a good presentation about the situation in the Philippines from her perspective as working on military defense-related issues. But on the energy side, you know, the energy really affects not just the military side, but the whole country. And she pointed out the general lack of energy, the lack of independence, problem about running out of the domestic source of natural gas within a few years, very significant source, and the general problem with transmission grid across the country. Now, I'm no expert in the Philippines, and I'm certainly not really a spokesperson for PNOC either, but I'm pinch hitting today because the representative of PNOC who was supposed to come couldn't come. But Dr. Wilhelm highlighted toward the end of her presentation the e-combustible as a part of the overall solution for energy by being able to provide clean energy without the heavy dependence on a large transmission grid, because this e-combustible fuel can be produced on site, very close or next to the energy need, the consumers, taking up very little space. So, you know, solar energy is great, but it takes huge amount of land to produce energy, and it doesn't produce energy 24 hours a day. So there are limitations on different forms of renewable energy sources, and that's why, you know, many renewable energy sources require a supplementary source to go with, such as battery storage, which increases investment needs significantly. The advantage of e-combustible is that you don't really need those secondary supplemental infrastructure to provide reliable energy 24/7. Now, in addition to e-combustible, there are other interesting speakers who will come after me, including Sorgen, that's located in Korea. And Janice has introduced me to that company as well as Dr. Ning, who will be speaking after me from Vietnam, and also Soiva. So in this day of severe climate change, you know, I'm a lawyer by background, but I've become interested in this whole issue of energy transition as we battle this huge problem of climate change around the world. And really, the time is running out on us and on the environment as well. So, you know, all of us really need to work together very diligently to explore all different sources of forms of the clean energy, as well as solutions to deal with the rising global temperature, problem with the ocean getting depleted of oxygen. So, you know, the multiple fronts we're getting invaded, and we need solutions to deal with different issues in different parts of our environment. And so we'll be hearing from different speakers. And, you know, I do thank Janice for trying to pull together this diverse group of speakers representing different technologies to deal with the emerging and become issues that are becoming more serious. After I visited Hawaii last year, I've come across a group that's working with small island developing states, the so-called SIDS. Hawaii is not a developing state as it is part of the United States, but it is an island economy. And the SIDS are composed of 57 island nations as well as territories, and they face similar environmental challenges. And these small island developing states will get together at the end of this month for their, what is called, I mean, they get together once every 10 years. This time they'll be getting together in Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean, and they'll set forth the development strategy for the next 10 years, and also appointing the chair country to lead collective efforts for the next 10 years. And that chair country will be Antigua and Barbuda, which will be hosting this conference. And I've been invited to attend there as well. So after participating here at the beginning of this month, in just about 3 weeks, I'll be flying to Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbeans, meeting with 57 small island developing states that are facing many of the same issues that Hawaii does, but they're in a much more precarious and financially more difficult situation, as they are, most of them are very poor countries. So it's part of the UN grouping of nations, and we'll be working closely with the United Nations and other potential financial sources. Now, I've already run a little bit behind the schedule, cutting into your break. So I'll stop at this point. I'll be happy to speak to you during break and over the next day and a half. Thank you very much.
Well, as was just noted, we are now into our break time, and given the fact that the breaks are really opportunities for networking and conversations, right now we have a 10:28. So if we could, we'll come back here at about 10:45. That should give us a little bit of time, and then we'll start right back up again. So thank you very much. Apparently these lights, right, because that's what's over there is up here.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Maybe you can put your phone light on. Second man.
Okay, thank you for checking. Aloha. I know that you can hear me out in the forum or the atrium. Yeah, I should. Representative Kong, I think we're okay. Nobody wants to see my face anyway. I think we're good. All right, aloha. Thank you all for coming back in at a reasonable time so that we can continue this. Don't sit down, Mike. You're next on the list. So again, thank you all for coming on back. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mike Upshaw with PEMESA Group and Green Hydrogen Products. Mike is also a member of the Forum Committee. And as he was just saying, it is a pleasure for him to work with all the members of the Forum Committee every year, and he's going to do it as long as he's here. Right? That's what you told me.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. So without further ado, Mike Upshaw. Let's give him a round of applause.
Well, good morning. So again, my second year in a row, and very proud to be here. I'm an independent business development officer for both the E-Combustible Group and PEMESA. which is the story that I'm going to tell today that started off as an opportunity and turned into a collaboration. E-combustible, everybody, if you're not familiar, is the first that I know of commercially applied, developed and applied green hydrogen molecule that's been deployed commercially. The founder, it's kind of an interesting story. The founder is from Colombia, the country of Colombia. The chief business officer is Spanish. In 2013, when they formed the company, they moved to the United States, Miami, or as the joke goes, the reason why they like Miami is close proximity to the United States. They came here basically because the technology, they were aware that it was sensitive and they wanted the protection of being in the United States. So the irony of that story is their first commercial client is in Spain. And it had nothing to do with the fact of that they were Latin-based, had to do with the leader of PAMESA Group, Mr. Fernando Rouge, saw clearly the vision for his own company. Little backstory on PAMESA. PAMESA is the second largest tile manufacturer in the world. They're located in a very small village or a town of approximately 50,000 people, about an hour outside Valencia. The thing that's so ironic is that PAMESA goes through equivalent of 750 megawatts of energy a day, which would be more than three times what the AES coal plant that was closed down here in Honolulu. So in other words, they consume more energy than probably the whole island of Oahu in one day. So they were the largest user of natural gas, the third largest user of natural gas in Europe. So while the quantities were and the pricing were sufficient, when the disturbance in Ukraine developed, it drove the prices through the roof, which made PAMESA, and under his leadership, Mr. Rouge, to make a decision. So one of the biggest parts of tile manufacturing is when they mix the silica with the clay and they put it through an atomizer. I won't bore you to death. What it does is it's a drying, and that demands great amounts of energy and heat. And E-Combustible got the break. Mr. Rouge liked it so much he invested. So as this day is today, PAMESA represents the largest privately held application for this solution in the world, and they're expanding at a rapid pace. They also, on the premises, are the largest private solar, because in order to make hydrogen, whether it be the traditional molecular hydrogen or this hybrid, which is a parahydrogen, you need energy. So they're producing about, on their rooftops, about 20 to 25 megawatts a day. It takes 1 megawatt of energy to create 4 megawatts of green hydrogen. And they're producing it, and they'll be looking at this year a reduction of about 65 million euros in carbon taxes. So it's a win-win. So back to the story. What's interesting to see this is where opportunity becomes, again, a collaboration. And where does it go from here? You know, I'm 76 years old. I've been around a few decades. I've watched a lot of very innovative, disruptive technology come into the world, not destructive. And the one thing is that you have a US-based company that needs to be recognized for what it brings to the marketplace and how it can be, especially energy starved group like in Hawaii. You import everything. All green energy needs is water. And I was just explaining to somebody during the break. A gallon of diesel fuel has approximately 137,000 BTUs, British thermal units per gallon. A gallon of water, if unlocked, has got 1.3 million BTUs. The question is, how do we invest? Who do we get to buy into the program so that all of us can benefit? It's really quite moving when you see people that have taken the initiative. Not only are their return on investment going to be, I mean, it's going to be incredible for them in the long run, but to be able to be self-sufficient and sustainable is the key. And as things go on, I think we're going to start to understand that this goal that we're set for production of hydrogen is going to change in a great way. A year ago, when I was here, there was talk of Hawaii becoming a hydrogen hub, which by all means, the Biden administration put up $7-8 billion attainable. I thought it was fantastic. But then you start thinking about, what are you going to do with the hydrogen? Of course, the money coming into the islands would be great tax base, great for jobs, but you have to have a way to consume it. It wouldn't have happened. There's no place to put the hydrogen. There's no transportation. There's no storage. We're talking about an undertaking that would be monumental and probably not in my lifetime or your lifetime. So you're going to see it. But what is available is a very common solution that can be applied today. Small steps. E-combustible and PAMESA have shown the world that you can collaborate with each other. It's on-site specific, so you can build with a very small footprint. They're putting out equivalent to 25 megawatts in one building. It takes up less than 10,000 square feet. The same thing equivalent in natural gas. You would have a facility in power generation, probably 7 to 10 acres. So you can see it's pale in comparison. It's just a smart way to do things. So now we have, the challenge is going to be, how do we find smart ways to apply these new technologies? Because I can tell you more and more things are going to come, and they're going to come fast. But are we going to be able to grab them and put them to work? That's the key. To explain how the fuel works, I think that would be the process of generating e-combustible uses electricity to convert water into fuel through a special improved electrolysis technique, transforming hydrogen with electromagnetic pulses to greatly affect the fuel. What's unique about this fuel is that you can raise the caloric heat content of the fuel. If you want it to burn equivalent to natural gas, which is about 1,000 degrees, it burns at 1,000 degrees. Hydrogen typically burns at about 275, 300 degrees. So it takes 3 times more hydrogen to match one equivalent to what e-combustible does. E-combustible fuel can be created to go up to 3,400 degrees and burn, all with no carbon, no footprint, other than one byproduct, oxygen, and we can use that. So the water decomposition process takes place in skids. Each skid has 36 cells, each of which is powered by electric pulses at special frequencies that significantly reduce energy consumption. I think as time goes on, we're going to see more and more of hearing about electric frequencies. Frequencies are the quantum physics solution to how to make and manipulate things to make them do things for us. And I think that the quantum physicists are going to be the leaders in the future. I know we have some people here that are related to Dr. Lee. Dr. Lee is a quantum physicist, and his expertise is cleaning water. We're going to see it more and more. I travel with a product from a quantum physicist. This is called an ioni. And what this does, it pulses at 3.5 megahertz, and it produces an effect on my red blood cells that allows me to go through many time zones without jet lag. Simple device. And we're going to see more and more of these things, and you're going to find it in the news, because this, I think, is going to be the key to our future and making it sustainable. So back to the hydrogen process. The hydrogen passes through magnetic reactors that enhances the characteristics of the hydrogen molecule, resulting in fuel with higher calorific value, improved combustion properties compared to conventional hydrogen. Two storage tanks separately store the production of hydrogen and oxygen for immediate use. Finally, hydrogen and oxygen are transported to the burner where they recombine to form the final e-combustible molecule. The patented e-combustible process achieves a clean and efficient fuel that only releases water vapor during combustion, completely eliminating carbon emissions. The efficiency of e-combustible can replace 100% of all traditional fossil fuels, representing a historic transformation in thermal energy processes. So thermal energy is where they are today. I was just in Spain 2 weeks ago. I watched their conversion on an automobile. They have a small kit that goes on a regular gas car that for less than $2,000, and they put in a small, looks like a scuba tank. That car will go 250 miles. Now, it's only going to work probably in what I call in an island environment. California, there's no deployment, but in somewhere here, it's another weapon for this battle that we're faced with the polluting air, the water, and our challenges of just being able to turn our electricity on and run our air conditioners during those moments without having to, sell the family farm. So again, I'm very active with these groups. There are other associate companies now that have become part of this collaboration. Energy storage, we represent a carbon-based storage system, no chemicals, no lithium ion, no explosions, no maintenance. This is something that you can talk to Janice or TS about, or while I'm here. Again, like I said, I want to thank you very, very much. Hopefully, I've been able to enlighten you a little bit on the progress of things. And if you have any questions, feel free to come up and ask me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate it. At this point, we have Mr. Dongdeng Li, who is associated with Sargon and Sion Global Group. Look forward to hearing from Mr. Li. It's looking at the bio. Hopefully I understand the talk.
Aloha.
Aloha, everyone.
The language is habit. I studied in California for 5 years, but it's been 4 years. I didn't have any chance to speak English, so I forgot everything. So he's gonna. He's the manager of the Sion Global. His name is Danny Moon. He's gonna translate for me this time. Can you please play the video number 1?
So this video gonna show how the Sion group treat the wastewater. So it's more easy to understand how we did it.
The U.S. Navy must be ready exactly when and where needed. Sion Global offers solutions that make sure the crucial port logistics are available, affordable, and efficient, so that ship and crew can attend to other demands when they are at port. Proper disposal of wastewater, black, gray, or oily water at any given port is a critical operational and environmental activity which needs to be addressed on a daily basis. We have been providing mobile and expedited water treatment solutions in some of the most demanding ports in the world. Conventionally, treating contaminated ship water involves many steps, including collection, transport to pier, transport across land, treatment on land, and then disposal to sea. Driven by the need for efficiency, Sion Global perfected a barge-based wastewater treatment system. We bring a complete treatment facility directly to the vessel at any location, pierside or anchor. For the past decade, Sion's team has optimized one of the most advanced wastewater treatment systems available in terms of efficiency and sustainability. This unique system guarantees a savings in time and operating costs, while minimizing the risk of environmental mishaps. Sion's wastewater treatment brings the U.S. Navy a better solution that avoids many costs and saves approximately 50% compared to alternative treatment systems. It reduces the workload on the crew and is scalable to meet surges in demand. Listen to what the experts who have seen the Sion barge have to say about it.
佐世保米海軍のお仕事を10年前から水質検査を中心にさせていただいております。バージシステムのおかげで佐世保の水質改善も随分進みまして BOD はじめ国の基準を随分下回って非常に佐世保の海もきれいになりまして弊社としてもバージシステムのこの効果に非常に感激いたしております。
In Japan, these barge-based wastewater systems have treated over 5 million tons of wastewater without incident or delay over the past 10 years.
当時からするとものすごくきれいになったなとは思っております。そのことに関しては、一佐世保市民としてものすごくこのバージシステムのことに関してはものすごく感謝しております。
Sion is already meeting some of the world's strictest environmental standards. Our system meets Japanese standards, US standards, and all other major global standards.
The wastewater treatment system that is operating from this barge is a major enhancement to their ability to keep waters clean in ports where it's being used.
Sion is in position, providing a treatment system that is efficient, that cuts both time and cost, sustainable, meets high global environmental standards, and scalable to satisfy even the highest demands in port. So the U.S. Navy could most efficiently get back to being where it's needed, when it's needed.
Nice video.
안녕하십니까. 저는 소르젠 테크놀로지 대표 이동빈입니다.
Hello, my name is Dongbin Lee, and I'm a CEO of Source and Technology.
그리고 이분은 말씀드린 것처럼 소르젠 기술을 활용한 오폐수 정화 회사인 시온 글로벌의 어시스턴트 프로젝트 매니저 데니 문입니다.
And my name is Danny Moon, and I'm an assistant project manager in Sion Group, and we are working for the wastewater management.
이런 영광스러운 자리에 함께 할 수 있게 되어서 여러분과 제니스 고 사장님께 감사드립니다.
And thank you for inviting us to amazing, beautiful Hawaii, and especially the Janice Go who invited us.
이 소르젠 기술은 30년 전에 제 아버지께서 개발하신 기술로 현재는 다양한 산업 분야에서 적용하고 있습니다.
So this technology has been developed since 1990s from Dr. Lee, who is Dongbin's dad. And now this technology using for diverse business.
오늘 이 자리에서 기술을 전부 다 설명드리기에는 시간이 부족하므로 오폐수 정화에 관련된 부분을 설명드리도록 하겠습니다.
So I hope we can introduce the sewage water treatment technology today, and I hope we can tell the other technology if we have time.
방금 보셨던 이제 프로토콜을 통해서 항공모함의 오폐수를 정화하고 있습니다.
So you guys saw the video. That video shows the result of the PFAS test at the end. Oh, sorry, PFAS test. Oh yeah, and we're gonna show the example of how we use that sewage water. I mean treated water, with the fishes in the pond. Could you please a second one?
소로젠 기술을 통해서 정화된 물은 자체적으로 오염을 정화시키는 기능을 가지게 되는데 해당 영상은 3년간 갈지 않은 상태로 분봉호를 기르고 있는 영상입니다.
So the water purified through Solgen technology gains the ability to self-purify contamination. So the video shows goldfishes being raised in a state untouched for 3 years.
소로젠 기술은 대상 물질의 화학적 구조를 변화시키는 것이 아니라 새로운 기능을 부여하는 것입니다.
So this technology doesn't alter the chemical structure of the target substance, rather it provides it with new functionalities.
항공모함의 오폐수를 대상으로 시온 바지선에서 물과 기름이 분리되도록 기능을 부여하고 정화될 수 있도록 기능을 부여하는 것입니다.
So it grants functionalities for separating water and oil in the wastewater of aircraft carrier at the Sion vessels and for enabling purification.
예를 들어서 바닷물을 대상으로 해서 담수의 기능을 부여하게 된다면 어떤 일이 벌어질까요?
So for example, if we are using the ocean water to grow the other freshwater fishes and oceanic fishes, we can show the video. Can you play the next one? So you guys can see there's oceanic fish and freshwater fish living together in the same water, which means we can make the same environment.
저것들 다 오키나와뿐만이 아니라 다른 데도 먹이 어디서 판대?
저 먹이 파는 집에 가면 그저 이피사 줄 좀 사러 갔다.
You guys understand language?
지금 이 줄돔은 바다 물고기인데 어항 안에 민물 어항 안에 살고 있습니다. 자, 금붕하고 조업을 했습니다.
그래서 그건 이제 판단에
민물 안에 있는 줄돔입니다.
그래. 근데 뭐 장기적으로 보면 5년이면은 다 될 수도 있지.
PFOS와 PFAS 등 비롯한 인간과 자연 생태계에 치명적인 유해 물질 또한 기술 처리를 통해서 이제 정화할 수 있는 이제 정화를 저희가 하고 있습니다.
So there's a two type of PFAS, which is called PFOS and PFAS. So through technology processing, the harmful substances such as PFOS and PFAS, which are related to both human and nature ecosystems, can also yield such results. Oh yeah, would you do the picture last one? Actually, this picture is we're gonna show how we install the chamber. We call the chamber, so we can treat the water inside of the chamber with the signal.
이런 형태를 갖추고 있는데 그 크기나 장소 이게 설치할 수 있는 장소에 국한되어 있지는 않습니다. 이제 더 크게 할 수도 있고 더 작게 할 수도 있고.
So no matter what, we can side upscale and downscale, outside, inside, any place. So there's no problem. We can start any market.
이게 심지어 저희는 이제 방금 보셨던 것처럼 물을 정화하는 요 기능을 부여하는 걸 통해서 새우 양식도 저희가 슈림팜에다가 적용을 하는데 그 슈림팜에서 2년간 저희는 이제 물을 갈지 않고 이제 계속 슈림프를 길렀었습니다.
So as this technology, they have experience for growing shrimp in Korea, and they didn't change any water for 2 years.
저 뒤쪽에 앉아 계신 분께서 이제 그 2년 동안 저희 슈림팜에서 담당해 주셨던 분입니다.
There's one guy who worked in the shrimp farm in Korea last 2 years.
저희 목적하고자 하는 어떠한 현상을 물질이 됐건 어떠한 현상을 바로 적용을 하고 도출을 해낼 수 있는 기술이 저희 소리젠 기술입니다.
So this technology, we are not changing any substance for the matter, but we can change the structure.
이거 보시는 사진 같은 경우에는 우유를 처리하는 건데 저희가 기술을 처리하고 나면 우유가 썩지가 않고 아무런 뭐 첨가제 없이 치즈로 변화됩니다.
So as a picture, you guys can see the green boxes. There's milk inside. So we treated it for few days, and it didn't change to like the mold, so no smells come out. It's changed to a cheese easily. Yeah.
소르젠 기술은 오폐수뿐만 아니라 산업 전반의 다양한 분야에 적용될 수 있고 사업적인 성과를 내고 있습니다.
So this technology is not only for using the wastewater management, and we can use the diverse business as well.
기회가 된다면 다양한 분야에 대해서 천천히 소개해드리고자 합니다.
So if you have a chance, we can explain the other case of business later.
이런 영광스러운 자리에 함께 할 수 있게 돼서 다시 한번 감사드립니다. Thank you.
And again, thank you for inviting us, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you. I need some mic. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Live together. That's the point.
그 바닷물이 가지고 있는 특성이 있고, 프레시워터가 가지고 있는 특성이 있습니다. 저희는 프레시워터가 가지고 있는 특성을 캡처를 하고 칩에다 저장을 하고 그걸 바닷물에다 적용을 합니다.
So there's two different structure between fresh water and oceanic water, but we bring the data from oceanic water and add to the fresh water, and it make it happen to live together in the same water. So actually we use the ocean water. Was it ocean water?
Salty water.
Yeah, salty water. But we put the signal for fresh water and small fishes living together. Any other questions, guys? Yeah, we can talk later in the. Sure. Oh, you mean the fresh water? Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
예를 들어서 저희 시온 글로벌에서 이제 하고 있는 기술은 물과 기름을 분리하는 그 기능을 부여하고 있거든요. 그 시베이지 워터에다가.
So Sion Global has used their technology for separate for oil and water. So that's which we're using the signal in Sion.
근데 지금 그 기술 개발자이신 저 박사님께서 지금 중국에 계시는데 중국에서 지금 하고 있는 거는 물하고 기름을 섞는 거를 그 석유에다 부여를 하고 그 기능이 부여된 석유를 끌어올리는 그 작업을 지금 하고 계십니다.
In other way, Dr. Lee have testing in China right now for not separate oil and water. They try to keep the emulsifier water and oil together. It's a different test over there too.
그렇게 하는 것처럼 이제 어떤 기능을 부여하는 것이기 때문에 반대로도 충분히 가능합니다.
So it's possible anyway, back and forth and other side. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, everybody raise your hands if you understood how that happened. Yeah, exactly. Dr. Wilhelm, that's not fair. I know. Thank you so much. That's really exciting, just exciting on a science basis, and then of course the implications from that. So thank you for presenting during the forum today. I'd like to next introduce probably someone who needs no introduction, but Dr. Ninh Nguyen. He is with the Center for Environment Research, Education, Development in Hanoi, Vietnam. And frankly, he's a legend. So, Dr. Nguyen.
Aloha. Yeah. I would like to thank for the Hawaii Forum Organizing Committee invited me to be here, and I'm very happy to to show our updated the activity. I think that I came first to Hawaii 35 years ago, so 1989. And I have been working with and cooperating with the many institutions in Hawaii, U.S. Center, University of Hawaii, PDC, and so many activity with the here. And I come, this is my trip, is a 17th trip to Hawaii. So nearly every year I come to Hawaii. Yeah. I think I have been working, please, that's right. I have been working on the climate change for nearly 40 years. And we focus now, so the climate security. So 3 points important for climate key sector is energy, is food security, energy security, food security, and water security. And I focus on areas in Vietnam and Swiss Asia and some places in the world. And this time I want to show our activity on the energy security. So you may know that Vietnam developed so fast in the last 20 years, and each year now the energy demand increased about 20-30%. So billion and billion US dollar invest to energy sector. And you might know that the next slide, please. And next slide, please. And I said, please. So with the global warming, so the strategy of the world and also Vietnam is lead to the carbon zero, zero net in 2050. And Vietnam strategy is the same. So next slide, please. I think this how we can survive in the 10 billion people, and in Vietnam it's about in Earth 15 about 120-30 million people. So this is a big question. So we try to find different way how to deal this problem. Next slide, please. I think the key point we are working now in Vietnam is the electricity at the moment is they rely on the fossil fuel, so coal and gas and other things. And when we transfer to the green technology and green energy, so we need the innovative solution. Next slide, please. I think this is we have no choice. We have no choice, in Vietnam and in the world too. So we have only 30 years more, so we need to lead less carbon zero. Next slide, please. I briefly show, next slide, please. I briefly show the national policy in Vietnam. This all strategy is lead to the green growth and green, technology. And for energy sector, the same thing. We try to move. Next slide, please. Briefly, I show the data, but not only Vietnam, but in other countries, the electricity control is very, very monopoly. I think even in Hawaii. So for hydrogen, I think in Vietnam, we try to find how we can develop, how we can start to this. Next slide, please. This way, we try to find the gapper, the trapper in electricity system in Vietnam. So one we use the grid, the same in Hawaii. One we use the grid. So we have to depend on the electricity company. This is the state company. So when we develop the new energy as a hydrogen, we have to think about how to avoid bureaucracy. So if we start the demo side, hydrogen successfully, so we can work on the commercial facility. This is the way we try to develop the demo side with the grid system. And so at the moment, next slide, please. At the moment in Vietnam, we have now the hydrogen very, very at beginning. They start to be 1-2 factory, but it's not finished. In the next 2-3 years, about 25,000 ton hydrogen per year in factory. But at the moment we don't have. I think that we formulate the new group in Vietnam with also the research university and a company, and also we work with the foreign company. So form the group to do the hydrogen project. And next slide, please. And this is the way we want to do is apply the hydrogen to to produce the hydrogen fuel cell on the battery, on the ventilator, generator, and even the hydrogen power. This is the way. But this is the small and medium size, such a small size. So this we don't need the grid system. So at that point, because in Vietnam it's a very wide country, also the island, also the remote country, so they need electricity. But we try to do this way, and this make the benefit for the the investor and the producer. Because if you use the high commercial big facility, this we need the grid. Then this this trouble with other system at the moment existing. So this is the way we do. Next slide, please. This is the way we see this 2050 the boson in energy system in Vietnam, and the structure for for energy system is hydrogen. This I think is big enough. And in next 5 years, the state design so about 500,000 ton hydrogen per year, and in 50 about 10-20 million ton hydrogen per year. I think this is the huge. So next slide, please. So I think for this way we start to work with the demo side, the small side, and it's easy to carry out. Next slide, please. So we focus on producing the hydrogen fuel cell, battery, accumulator, and generator. And I think this yesterday also we visit a site in Hawaii to see how they operate the facility with the grid, and also they can facilitate with other gas, the generator and other thing. I think this hydrogen system the same thing, just as propane on other thing on hydrogen, and we use the micro hydrogen producer and that one. And this all facility Vietnam can produce in Vietnam, and I think it's cheap price. And so when we work with the company in Vietnam and Hawaii and the US company, we can work out the good demo side, and then the investor in Vietnam and if investor from other country, they can come to Vietnam to work with us. Then that's the way. At the moment in Bình Thuận and Ninh Thuận, this is the best place for the solar and the wind power. Not only Vietnam, in the world. This is the solar and the wind map is the best. We have now 2,000 hectares for the wind and solar farm, and we have industry zone for the hydrogen. Already we get the permission from the provinces. So now we develop the demo site in Hanoi, small site, about so and when we finish 1-2 years, and we can develop the commercial hydrogen facility. I think this during this time we don't need the grid system, so it's easy to carry out. And after that we can deal with the electricity company, the government company to buy, because now when we use the solar and the wind power, but with the grid we can use the cheap price, because we produce solar energy and use the solar energy to hydrogen, green hydrogen. So that's the our price, not the commercial price. So this this we can make the benefit for investor. So I think this is the way we are working on. So I am pleased to share this slide with you, anybody, and I think that we welcome your collaboration with us in Vietnam. Thank you.
So everyone's wondering what we're going to do. So right now on the program is a question and answer opportunity time period. And I am happy to take the questions. I am not going to answer them. But we can make sure that we get the conversation going back and forth. So we have a variety of presentations this morning, some really important areas and just terrific talks. And if anyone has any questions having to do with any of those, now would be a good time to address that. I don't think lunch is here yet, so it's not like we have to rush outside for lunch yet. So does anyone have any questions regarding any of the topics that were covered today? And they can also go, thank you very much, Sid. If you would go over to the microphone that's over on the other side so that you are then captured for posterity. So I have a question for Dr. Wilhelm, and I already have a mic, so there we go. So Dr. Wilhelm, if you wouldn't mind going over there, that would be great. So in the development of the execution of the tabletop exercise, the TTX, you talked and you had some of the takeaways that were listed. It was a pretty comprehensive list. Was there anything in particular that you were surprised about and that you see as needing some additional work on, as you proceed?
Beautiful, thank you. So I don't know that there was anything that was exceptionally surprising. I think for us, we assumed that the Filipinos might lean in a bit to the Reed Bank issue. What we had been told by some of our interagency partners was that there's a nationalism that sort of surrounds Reed Bank, and I think almost there's a geopolitical desire. That there's also somewhat of an unrealistic expectation that would be the sort of final solution to Philippine energy problems. And I think that fortuitously of the contingent that we had in the room, that they had gotten away from it as the more immediate energy solution. And so most of the discussion that we had was the sort of what were going to be the prospects for things that didn't provide for so much controversy over the actual hydrocarbon deposits that are available at Reed Bank are well, somewhat unknown because the PRC is not allowed for independent exploration on the part of the Filipinos. I think that the major oil and gas companies have said that it's not as significant as a deposit as the sort of the hype would imply. And so I think we were somewhat surprised that the discussion sort of quickly had gone to the realm of leaning into things like liquefied natural gas. And I think there's always a somewhat uncomfortable political aspect to the discussions that surrounds the idea that I know in particular for a lot of developing countries that are looking to increase their capacity and access to energy for people who in many areas have never had it before, versus those in places that are trying to encourage energy conversion. I think that the idea of being able to do immediate and total energy conversion versus increased capacity is one of the conversations that I think we were reminded we needed to stay open-minded to the idea that just access to energy at all. I mentioned the jet P in Indonesia having become a somewhat of an awkward conversation. In general, I think the Indonesians would like to maintain a lot of their coal-fired plant capacity and add to it rather than try to replace it. And so I think those were things we were reminded that if we were going to do total conversion, we needed to account not only for the current capacity, but an expanded capacity, which is often a difficult prospect. And so I think those were good reminders from them that this is not an obvious or black and white solution sometimes. I think their longer term solutions, there were things that we both sort of expected, microgridding, because I think, for so many island places in the world, microgridding is something that is acknowledged as a good potential solution for that, where I think the biomass and energy storage were things that had come up more readily than solar and wind. I think there's some acknowledgement that they're interested in organic and local capabilities, as well as friendshoring to U.S. companies, and some concern about PRC controlled technologies. And so I think that was that always becomes somewhat of a politically charged conversation. So that was a good one. So yeah, I think there were some expected things, and then reminders of it. It was I had attempted to be fairly judicious about who I had in the room, particularly from the DoD side. So the CSIS had been somewhat insistent and defensive about the Philippine participants. They didn't want them to get run over because they wanted those voices to be prominently heard. And so we were careful to ensure that those from DoD were those who genuinely, listened and were open-minded to things. And so that was something we wanted to ensure that we were actually hearing those things, as opposed to applying what we had presumed to be the solution going into it. So does that answer your question?
It does. And I can't help myself, because having served in the Pentagon, as you know, I'm just appalled that there is anybody that is in DoD that wouldn't have an open mind. I can't believe it. So in any event, obviously being facetious with that. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that.
Appreciate it, Dick. Thanks.
Sir, you had a question? Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, everyone. So as I know that in Vietnam, many firms would like to produce green energy. So can you tell me about which support or investment that firms in Vietnam can get from United States to produce green energy? Thank you.
All right, so everybody's looking at me like I'm going to have some kind of answer for that. Thank you, by the way, for the question. What I can do is I can provide a brief response from my role and from my position. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I am the Director for Research and Development, which is an economic development organization in the county of Hawaii, or the Big Island. In our department, we have responsibility across a variety of sectors. So it's a rather broad portfolio. It includes energy. Our mayor is very focused on hydrogen energy. As a matter of fact, our county is part of a DOE sponsored activity called the Pacific Hydrogen Alliance. We were selected as one of two so far collaborations. So our collaboration is with Lancaster, California, which is a municipality in the northern part of the Los Angeles County that has all of its energy being provided for by renewable sources. And then also Namie, Japan, which is part of the Fukushima prefecture. And as a result of the tsunami, the earthquake and the tsunami, and the nuclear facility problems that stem from that, a lot of funds from the Japanese government and private sector support has gone into having Namie become probably the premier hydrogen generation municipality in the world. And so the three of us, they came to us, the three of us are working on education items as well as potential projects that are associated with how can we move towards a hydrogen-based economy that will reduce, particularly in our case, the amount of fossil fuel that we import and bring across our shores. And there's a variety of things that are being looked at. Each of the municipalities has kind of its own generation sources. So we're very fortunate because we have a variety of renewable sources that are on our island. I think to address the question specifically, we are looking at what funding is coming out of the federal government and to some degree the state government because of the way the generation sources are going to be identified and potentially utilized for the creation, in our case, of green hydrogen. Those funds will be important to us as we try and move forward with the variety of ways that we can source hydrogen. So we're having those conversations. We're looking for the funding that's coming out of the federal and the state government. And we're also having conversations with private sector entities who are looking to have hydrogen as a byproduct of some other kind of mechanism that they're using, whether it be chemical or something else, that creates hydrogen in a way that is also in the process of creating something else. So all of those are part of the way that we as a county, at least, are, as a small county in the middle of the Pacific, are looking at the development of hydrogen, green hydrogen specifically, as we try and do our part to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that are part of our county. That would be from my perspective. I would open it up to anyone else who might be interested in also addressing that question. Go ahead, Mike. You're going to have to come to a mic. Mike, you can come to this mic. It's up to you.
Okay, I guess this is working. From the fuel aspect of production, typically from the combustible side of the equation, which is only the fuel component, to build a facility that would produce the fuel to run in a natural gas turbine, power generation station, or conversion from coal to specifically this fuel, runs about 1.5 to $2 million per megawatt. That's to build the fuel. So it usually comes out at about, the cost is about 10 cents a kilowatt in fuel costs. But what's unique about e-combustible, their business model, is that the investment over a 6-year period is returned to the investment group, spread out in payments through deduction of the fuel. So the first 5 years or 60 months, they'll retire whatever the fuel you're using, whatever that is, they subtract it. At the end of the 6th year is a balloon payment to pay off the balance. After that, then it's just strictly, you don't own the technology, but you do own the right to that fuel at a fixed fuel price for somewhere between 15 and 25-year contract. So that's on that side of the equation that I can talk about. As far as the other hydrogen manufacturers, no clue. I do know that the secret number that everybody talks about is to get hydrogen, the regular molecular or atomic hydrogen, down to about $3 a kilo. I think they're right about $7 or $8, which is down in a year, it used to be 12 to 15. So they're doing it. I do know of one gentleman that actually is producing hydrogen in a small scale. I've seen it with my own eyes, and they're looking at about $1 a kilo. So that gets into a different thing because of the infrastructure required of what do you do with the hydrogen? There's no storage, there's no transport at this time. But that's the other side of the sword, the cutting part, a little dull. But the fact is, I think that strides are being made. And certainly the world can use all the hydrogen we can produce. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So any other questions? All right, with that, thank you all for this morning's portion of the forum. Lunch will be available outside, and we will re-engage at 12:50, 10 minutes to 1, and that's in about an hour or so. So thank you all very much.